Everyone's here, so let's go ahead and get started. If you would please join me for the pledge, I'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start with Mr. Banks, I just want to take just a quick 10 seconds here and thank our staff for everything that they've been doing. You guys are doing a remarkable job. You're giving 200% in an environment that is not necessarily the kindest environment. I just want to apologize for some of our community members for the way that they've been treating some of our staff. And, you know, I just want to apologize. You don't deserve it. You guys are trying your best and you're making it happen. I mean, here it is, January 10th. And up until now, we have not had to close a single school for the entire year, which I think is pretty remarkable given the circumstances. And you guys are, you know, picking up for one another when you can't be there. I know one of our neighboring counties, they sent a message to parents saying that they were, you know, cutting some bus routes, which, you know, parents are now having to figure out how to get their kids to school. And I know, for example, our bus drivers are really pulling together and covering each other's runs. And it's not perfect, but you guys are really working hard to make it work. So we just want to thank you as a board and let you know that we really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. So Deputy Superintendent for Instructional Support update, Mr. Banks, whenever you're ready.
Okay, Ms. Skinner, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. My update is going to be brief tonight. We do have an instructional materials adoption presentation for you, so I'll be brief with my piece of this tonight. I did want to let you know that we will be beginning instructional walkthroughs as a central office starting on Wednesday. As you may or may not know, our principals do this on a regular basis. Not only do they do observations and evaluations, but they also do instructional walkthroughs throughout the building in which they look for things like student engagement, alignment to our pacing guides, classroom management techniques in action, and also use of technology. So just like they do with their teachers, our central office, as they've done in the past, we'll begin ours on Wednesday. We're looking forward to that. So we often have a large group. We ask for anyone who wants to go, and we go out in our classrooms and get to observe and give some great feedback to our wonderful teachers. So we're really looking forward to that. Secondly, I mentioned this last time, our science adoption is next. We are working on that now. Currently, those people are being hired to be part of that committee. And did want to let you know that the state has modified the standards for science this year, and that all of the materials are vetted by the Department of Education. So that means that all the materials we will be looking at will have the new standards reflected. So that's next. You'll be hearing more about the science standards and the adoption coming up in the next few months. But tonight, under presentations, we'll be talking to you a lot about ELA adoption and entertain any questions you might have. Ms. Skinner, that is my update for this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Banks.
I have a question. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks, you said anyone who wants to go to the walkthroughs, is that correct? Are you inviting board members to attend the walkthroughs? Mr. Banks? Because previously I had requested to attend and Dr. Gibson said that board members weren't approved to go on walkthroughs. So I'm just,
Yeah, what I
clarifying.
was trying to say is we open that up to anyone in the central office, regardless if they're directly tied to instruction or not. We open that up for anybody at the central office who would like to attend. I'm sorry, I wasn't
But
clear on
board
that.
members can't, not board members. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Next up, we have the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting held December 13th, 2021, and special board meetings held December 7th, 9th, and 17th, 2021?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I was wondering why hasn't the video from December 17th been released and will that be released? I sent an email to Dr. Gibson asking about that video and she never responded. So I'm just wondering why some videos are posted and shared with the public while others aren't. And will this video be released? Because the minutes are really, really minimal. I just think it's important that the public see the full board meetings. Does any,
Well, I think the board meeting was open by Zoom, so anybody could attend the meeting, but I believe the only ones that are recorded and put up on the website are the regular meetings. Any other comments or questions? All right, so we have a motion to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Opposed? All right. Next, we have citizens' comments. Just a reminder, you're limited to 3 minutes. And please no derogatory comments and identifying any individuals. And just please be kind. First up, we have Joanne Curran, followed by Jennifer Vigil. All right, and Mr. Johnson does not see a Curran. If you're under another name, please change it so we could find you and let you speak. Let's go ahead and move on to Jennifer Vigil, followed by Karen Buck.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tonight I come to you as a parent who is fierce in the way of facts, a parent who researches and spends time trying to understand the beliefs and opinions of others when those beliefs and opinions are not facts. Tonight I'm going to bring you once again facts. The CDC has recently changed the isolation and quarantine guidelines, which I know are attached and to be discussed tonight at the end of this meeting. Let's talk about facts. The CDC states if you're fully vaccinated, you do not need to quarantine if you have been exposed to someone who has tested positive for COVID. August 20th, 2021, there was a special meeting that was held to determine whether masks should be mandated. The people that wanted the mandate were people that were also waiting for the vaccine to become available to better protect their children. The vaccine for children has now been mandated or made available, and almost 21% of 5 to 11-year-olds in Jefferson County have been vaccinated, and 51% of 12 to 15-year-olds in Jefferson County have been vaccinated. This is on the DHHR website. Why is there still a county mandate when the vaccine for children is now available? Where do we draw the line and say enough is enough? There will always be another variant. Here are more facts. Students within the schools are being threatened or given punishment if they are not wearing a mask correctly. Small children are being punished. Why are children being punished? Why are children being suspended? What is going on in our schools? Why are we so focused on masks that we aren't focused on the education of our children? Here are more facts. Students are struggling. Students are struggling psychologically and mentally. Children are not wearing masks at home or sporting events or at the mall or grocery store or wherever they may be. The only place they are wearing them is at school and maybe to a doctor's office. Why are we still masking our children? I ask you, have you spent time in the schools to see what these children and students are going through? Can you see when a student is smiling or when a student is struggling because they don't understand? Do you know what it's like to be forced to wear a mask in PE that is indoors? Do you know what it's like to not be able to have social time in class? Do you know what it's like to not be able to see your friend's face? Put yourself in a child's shoes and envision what they would see. Lastly, I bring you another fact. The school nurses can't even give my children medication if they have a headache. How do you even propose providing COVID tested to the schools? This is absolutely unnecessary and not acceptable. I say it here for everyone to hear and for it to be on public record. Jefferson County Schools does not have my permission to perform any medical tests on my children, Daniel, Andrew, and Mia, for any virus such as COVID or the flu without my consent. I close with this, as I've stated before. The Board of Education is here to help with the education of our children in the county. Stop controlling the parents and the health of our children. Let the parents be the parents and the educators be the educators. You're here to make Jefferson County's education top notch. And we are struggling as a community in a school system. All it takes is for one of our board members to stand up for what is right for our children and the parents and put a motion in place to discuss the mask mandate. Remember, we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Karen Buck, followed by Judy York.
There we go. Okay. I'm Karen Buck. This is purely my own opinion, meant for entertainment purposes only, and is directed, as always, to the board members and not the teachers. Regarding the biological testing and vaccinations of our children in school, the mere presence of a child in school does not count as presumed or informed consent on the part of the parent or the child. Tonight, the Jefferson County Board of Education Incorporated will probably vote on the mass testing, COVID testing of our children in school. Now, we know this decision has probably already been made. As I did with the masking of our children, I also researched this COVID testing of our kids in school idea. And I found no legal code, no legal statute, no legal precedent giving the Jefferson County Board of Education Incorporated the legal authority to test our kids or enforce the mask mandate. Now, everybody knows that the Board of Education is a corporation, right? Yeah. So they can vote all they want. They still have no legal authority to COVID test our kids in school, and they have no authority to collect our children's. And any more lawsuits? If the board does feel that they have legal authority, then they must cite the statute and law, either prove it or cease and desist. Now, the school's COVID protocols are dated October the 21st, and page 4 says, testing everyone in school is not recommended. Testing everyone has not been well studied. A negative test means that the person did not have COVID-19 when they were tested. A negative test does not mean that they are safe or cleared to be at school. So what the heck is it? So you test all the kids, and if they're positive, they can't be in school. If they're negative, they can't be in school because they might get COVID right after the test. The Jefferson County Board of Education Incorporated is making this up as they go along. They have no legal authority to collect DNA or force masking of our kids in school. Their ultimate goal, as everyone knows, is to have every child vaccinated. So heads up, everybody. Every administrator, teacher, principal, librarian, school nurse have their marching orders to follow or lose their job. Aren't we having major staffing issues? This board, hoping this board has your back, in my opinion. By the way, how much did these COVID testing supplies cost the taxpayers? I'm thinking what, 20,000? And the COVID testing supplies are made in China. Just saying. Good night.
Thank you. Next up, we have Judy York, followed by Chelsea Jardina. Whenever you're ready, Ms. York.
Thank you. I had to get my camera on there. Hello, my name is Judy York. I'm a parent of 3 children in Jefferson County. The late Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, "Good sense does not always lie with the loudest shouters, nor can we say that a large unruly crowd is always the best arbiter of what is right." In that light, I want to take a moment to thank you, the Board of Education, and our superintendent for continuing to show up to support our kids and weigh seemingly impossible decisions over the past 2 years. We have been immersed in extremely challenging times, circumstances that are far less than ideal, which often seem to point to only the best of the worst solution. It's a lot to juggle. You're supporting a diverse community with a wide range of values, opinions, and circumstances. With such diversity, it's hard to discern what is the best solution. You've been yelled at, cursed at, called names, and threatened by members of our community here in our meetings and on social media. And yet here you are, continuing to show up, seeking to navigate the best path forward in support of our kids in our schools. And I just want to say thank you. And honestly, sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't agree with your decisions. Like I admit, I've been confused and frustrated in the past when snow days or 2-hour delays have been called while my road was completely clear of any snow or ice, like it was this morning. Then what I learned by listening to my neighbors in Jefferson County is that there's a wide range of weather experiences even within our 200 square miles. While my roads may be clear, other roads in the county could very well be snowed or iced over, especially up on the mountain. During winter events, I've come to trust the Board of Education to balance out all the needs of our entire school community across the whole county and make the tough decisions for the highest good and safety of our students, faculty, and staff. Similarly, as a family, we make the decisions we feel are right for us as it relates to our health and the pandemic. And what I've learned by listening to my neighbors in Jefferson County is there's a great diversity in personal circumstances, health needs, and risk tolerances within our 200 square miles. And some in Jefferson County are more vulnerable to ice and snow because of where they live. Some are more vulnerable to a highly contagious disease that has overstretched our health system and killed close to 1 million people in America. And again, as it relates to this highly contagious disease with no mitigation strategies, I've come to trust the Board of Education to balance out all the needs of the entire school community across the whole county and make the tough decisions for the highest good and safety of our students, faculty, and staff. I really appreciate you all for continuing to show up and listening to the soft voices as well as the loud voices and honoring the diversity of Jefferson County when seeking the best solutions for all our kids. In this, you offer a great model to our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. York. Next, we have Chelsea Jardina, followed by Jennifer Kraus. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Jardina.
Is it working? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Whenever you're ready.
Sorry. Hi, I am Chelsea Jardina. I'm a parent of 2 kids in Jefferson County. Thank you for taking the time to listen to these facts I have thoroughly researched over the last few weeks since the last board meeting where citizens of Jefferson County were completely ignored by the Board of Education members as always. I am hoping tonight will be different, where instead of Skinner slamming her gavel downright after we politely asked for a simple vote or discussion to end this mask mandate, if the board members will simply just listen to the facts and the stats of mask mandating and why it is not only harmful for our students, and to simply put it, masks do not work. There have been extensive randomized controlled trial studies which all show that masks do not work to prevent respiratory influenza-like illnesses believed to be transmitted by droplets and airborne particles. It would be a paradox if masks work, given that we know about viral respiratory disease. The main transmission path is long resistance time aerosol particles, which are too fine to be blocked in the minimum infective disease dose is smaller than one aerosol particle. Quoting Dr. Jim Meehan, who has performed over 10,000 surgeries in his lifetime, the COVID-19 pandemic is about viral transmission. Surgical and cloth masks do nothing to prevent viral transmission. We should all realize by now that face masks have never been shown to prevent or protect against viral transmission, which is exactly why they have never been recommended for use during the seasonal flu outbreak, epidemics, or previous pandemics. Exactly why they have never been. I would like to say that my daughter has been exempted by a medical professional to not have to wear a mask due to her frequent headaches, autoimmune flare-ups, and anxiety. I know many other students were recently exempted for similar reasons, especially having frequent headaches and anxiety. I've spoken with a calendar who's been working in the school district, saying this is the worst she's ever seen the kids mentally. Everyone is suffering mentally severely. It's been almost 2 years since we have been hit with this virus. I personally have had COVID twice, even though I am fully vaccinated. I have lupus, which means I get sick very easily, which makes me high risk for COVID. Actually, it makes me high risk for any disease because it will affect me just the same. I will not live in fear of this virus any longer, and I certainly will not allow my daughter to live in this fear either longer together. COVID is just another virus, much like the flu. And if you look at the stats, flu has actually killed more people than COVID itself over the last couple years. Let our children stop living in constant fear. Let them breathe. Let them see their friends.
Okay, next up we have Jennifer Kraus. Thank you, ma'am. Followed by Pamela Kershies. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Kraus.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to start by saying I'm appalled at the decision of this board to switch this meeting to virtual only. A few weeks ago, I asked you to disavow the claim that concerned parents are terrorists. Apparently, the reason you refused to disavow it is because you agree. The truth is that concerned parents are not terrorists, but you are cowards. That said, I want to talk about your increasingly disastrous COVID response. Dr. Gibson recently said that this board needs to, quote, get out of the public health business and get back to educating kids, end quote. I don't usually disagree with Dr. Gibson. Pardon me. I don't usually agree with Dr. Gibson, but this time she was 100% correct. First, you need to drop this ridiculous and open-ended mask mandate. It's not working because masks don't work. At this point, anyone with a drop of common sense can see that. That explains why you haven't. Instead, board employees and the C.W. Shipley principal harassed a parent whose doctor had determined her children should be exempt from the mask mandate. The principal only relented after being threatened with a lawsuit by the ADA. To any parent that is interested in unmasking your child, please know that all you need is a doctor's note. If your doctor refuses to provide one, you need to seek another doctor. If you contact me, I can help you find a doctor who will listen to your concerns. Second, you need to abandon this ridiculous idea of on-site testing. You've planned a possible vote on an issue that you haven't even presented to parents. The gall to think that you can approve school-sanctioned medical procedures on our children without even presenting your ideas to parents. The school nurse isn't allowed to give a child an aspirin, but you want to allow them to give our children medical tests? How dare you? You need to put off a vote on this indefinitely until you present a plan to parents and engage them in any conversation on this issue. By the way, Jefferson County Schools does not have my permission to test any of my 3 children, Charlotte, William, or Gabriel. And if you touch any of my children, I will sue. It's time you followed Dr. Gibson's advice and get out of the public health business. You are no good at it. Good night.
Thank you. Next up, we have Pamela Kershes, followed by Trisha James. And Mr. Johnson does not see Pamela in the room at the moment. I see he sent a message to a Pam. Is that Pamela Kershes? All right. The next up is Trisha James. And evidently no Trisha James either. For future reference, it's very important if you signed up for public comment that your screen name matches the name that you signed up with. Oh, somebody is here. It's 13042. I'm not sure if it's Pamela or Trisha. Mr. Johnson, Trisha James is listed as participant 13042. Pam, are you Pamela Kershes?
Yes.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
For months and months now, we have had parents and citizens addressing this board about the unjustified mask mandate decisions. Parents are not. These are taxpayers. We pay your salaries. You serve the public. Masking does not provide a safe, healthy environment for our children. In fact, studies show it is doing the complete opposite. Each and every one of you knows this. Stop lying to the public and mostly to children by inferring that masks stop the spread of COVID. There are hundreds of studies that scientifically prove that it is safe to send our children to school in person and unmasked. Each and every one of you knows this. And if you don't know it, you have failed at doing your job. And if Dr. Wvde really doesn't know this information, he too has failed at his job. Let me quote from JCBOH resolution. The Jefferson County Board of Health does not recommend a mask mandate for children attending Jefferson County schools. The Jefferson County Board of Health recommends that the decision as to whether or not a child is to wear a mask in school rests solely with the parent of said child. If a parent has concerns and chooses to mask their child, so be it. That's their choice. Nobody has the right to stop them. However, if a parent does not have concerns, then they too can choose not to mask, vaccinate, or have an invasive procedure performed without their permission. That is that parent's choice, and nobody has the right to stop them. Stop telling our children to hide behind a mask from each other. Stop telling our children to live in fear from a virus that has over a 99% recovery rate, especially in children. In addition, policies being voted on by this board should be publicized in full detail for citizens to read and fact check before they are voted on. Remember, you work for us. And if you don't believe that this is your job, then you need to be unseated from the chairs you are in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Trisha James, and Mr. Johnson, she's 13042. Ms. James, whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm actually going to read you a story. It's called the Sneetches. Now, the star belly Sneetches had bellies with stars. The plain belly Sneetches had none upon theirs. Those stars weren't so big. They were really so small. You might think such a thing wouldn't matter at all. But because they had stars, all the star belly Sneetches would brag we're the best kind of Sneetch on the beaches. With their snoots in the air, they would sniff and they'd snort. Will have nothing to do with the plain belly sort. And whenever they met some, when they were out walking, they'd hike right on past them without even talking. When the star belly children went out to play ball, could a plain belly get in the game? Not at all. You could only play if your bellies had stars, and the plain belly children had none upon theirs. When the star belly Sneetches had Frankfurter roasts or picnics or parties or marshmallow toasts, they never invited the plain belly Sneetches. They left them out cold in the dark of the beaches. They kept them away, never let them come near, and that's how they treated them year after year. Then one day, it seems, while the plain belly Sneetches were moping and doping alone on the beaches, just sitting there wishing their bellies had stars, a stranger zipped up in the strangest of cars. My friends, he announced in a voice clear and keen, my name is Sylvester McMonkey McBean, and I've heard of your troubles. I've heard you're unhappy, but I can fix that. I'm the fix-it-up chappy. I've come here to help you. I have what you need, and my prices are low, and I work at great speed, and my work is 100% guaranteed. Then quickly, Sylvester McMonkey McBean put together a very peculiar machine, and he said, you want stars like a star belly Sneetch? My friends, you can have them for $3 each. Just pay me your money and hop right aboard. So they clambered inside, then the big machine roared, and it clonked and it bonked and it jerked and it burked and it bopped them about. But the thing really worked. When the plain belly Sneetches popped out, they had stars. They actually did. They had stars upon theirs. Then they yelled at the ones who had stars at the start. We're exactly like you. You can't tell us apart. We're all just the same now, you snooty old smarties, and now we can go to your Frankfurter parties. Good grief, Gern, the ones who had stars at the first were still the best Sneetches, and they are the worst. But now how in the world will we know? They all frowned, and which kind is what, or the other way around? Then up came McBean with a very sly wink, and he said, things are not quite as bad as you think. So you don't know who's who. That is perfectly true. But come with me, friends. Do you know what I'll do? I'll make you again the best Sneetches on beaches, and all it will cost you is $10 each. Belly stars are no longer in style, said McBean. What you need is a trip through my star off machine. This wondrous contraption will take off your stars, so you won't look like Sneetches who have them on theirs. And that handy machine, working very precisely, removed all the stars from their tummies quite nicely. Then with snoots in the air, they paraded about, and they opened their beaks and they let out a shout. We know who is who, and now there isn't a doubt. The best kind of Sneetches are Sneetches without. Then of course those with stars all got frightfully mad. To be wearing a star now was frightfully bad. Then of course old Sylvester McMonkey McBean invited them into his star off machine. Then of course from then on, as you probably guessed, things really got into a horrible mess. All the rest of the day on those wild screaming beaches, the fix-it-up chappie kept fixing up Sneetches. Off again, on again.
Thank you. Next up, we have Joanne Curran. We got her name straightened out. So Mr. Johnson, if you could put her up, please. Ms. Curran, whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Ma'am.
I'm sorry?
Yes, ma'am, whenever you're ready.
Okay. My purpose in coming to these Board of Ed shows is to point out the absurdities in your decision-making with absurdity, humor, and hypocritical, embarrassing facts. I think I've been doing a pretty good job. Let's review. At last meeting's vocabulary lesson, we addressed the word misinformation rather than the more tolerant traditional word opinion. Then as promised tonight, we have the vocab word teenager. You probably think teenager is a real thing. No, actually it started in the first half of the 20th century as a media and marketing fad for profit. That's it, period. The way the world has always worked until the media poked in was that children spent their childhood learning how to grow into adults, responsible, loving, strong, hardworking citizens, learning the lessons of real life, moving from egocentric, that means self-centered children thinking the world revolves around them, to other-centric. What can I do for those around me? This teenage fad is a media-centric fad to keep young adults egocentric well into adulthood, with some never moving out of it. Puberty and parents are supposed to be nature's catalyst in life, but teenagehood, even now, steals childhood from kids. They're now being tweened, being sexualized and groomed by media fads and the willing accomplices in the schools. Academics, the thing that will lead to functioning adulthood and families, has been sidelined to social, emotional, self-centered self-absorption. Please stop destroying our kids by trying to help them. School is simple, clear, and successful. And if you'd stop trying to be the parent, church, community, and ultimate authority, just teach and watch the sun begin to shine into all the dark places you've created. Remember, fads are fake, fads fool, and fads fail. Which leads me briefly to back to the transgender fad, which can't even be taken seriously when it exposes such hypocrisy. A century of fighting for women's rights being ignored by feminists is disgusting on its hypocritical face. To defend physical males competing in physical female sports for scholarships and Olympic medals proves the hypocrisy of so-called feminists. You do realize that no one agrees with it, right? People laugh at it until they feel betrayed by their feminist mentors. And for a transgender man to be chosen Woman of the Year just spits in the face of women whose lives have truly been spent improving the status of women worldwide. Their silence proves their hypocrisy. Let me close with these words from another great athlete, not on gender science, or as it used to be called, biology, but speaking on the science of vaccines and mandates. Aaron Rodgers, the great quarterback, said, if science can't be questioned, it's not science, it's propaganda. So it follows if Dr. Fauci can't be questioned, it's propaganda. When Dr. Reedy can't be questioned, it's propaganda. And when Dr. Malone, who invented the vaccine platform for COVID, is banned from Twitter for saying that the Omicron variant is good news because it's like a natural vaccine of sorts. It's Twitter propaganda, not science. Use real science, not propaganda. Thank you.
All right, and that concludes public comment for this evening. Next up, we have the consent agenda. And Ms. Loring or Dr. Gibson-Loring, are there any changes to the consent agenda?
Hello, I'm joining now, so thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay, not so much as any changes, but there were a few things that I wanted to note and some introductions to make this evening. First of all, you'll see Ms. Fitzgerald's rescinding of her resignation as one of the first line items. Ms. Fitzgerald resigned but never had a break of employment, which is why it's listed as a rescinding of the resignation. So I wanted to make that clarity. Then for number 2, she applied for the coordinator of virtual learning position and was one of the several candidates interviewed and was a successful candidate that was selected by that committee for this position of coordinator, which is why it's listed as a transfer. As a reminder, the coordinator of virtual learning was originally discussed to be a principal leader position for this role. But through the development phases of the program, it had more responsibilities that went above and beyond the traditional principal role. And it was replaced to a coordinator role underneath Dr. Dilley's leadership when he was here. The coordinator role will also serve as the leadership position and have responsibilities to coordinate with the other principals across the county and district leaders when we may have to go virtual with their programs. So I just wanted to make sure I made that reminder and that clarity on these changes and also the position of the coordinator. Number 6, we have this evening the recruitment marketing facilitator that is on tonight's agenda. And also as a reminder, this position and this need was listed in the recruitment and retention plan that was presented by Dr. Gibson Learn. And it was approved at that time for us to be able to move forward with the recruitment and selection of this position. I'm happy to share that we were successful in this endeavor, and we have a very qualified individual to fulfill this very important role and vision and strategy for Jefferson County Schools. Number 7, we had to be announced. We have a name for you this evening and an introduction to make for this line. We have Mr. Dirk Webb's name listed, and he is here this evening to be introduced when I'm finished going through these highlights. And then number 13, as a special note for clarity, the system administrator is not a new position. This position was filled previously by a Jefferson County Schools employee, and that person had resigned. We posted the position, and the most successful candidate that was also selected by a committee is the current Jefferson County Schools employee in the technology department. And so it's listed as a transfer because of that individual's current status. Those are the highlights. Any questions for me before I make introductions?
Yeah.
You're muted.
For number 1, you said there's not been a break in employment, but the board approved for December 31st for that person's resignation, but this one is effective January 10th. So
that's correct. Yes, we had the ability to alter that resignation date because of our needs that we still have in order to serve Jefferson County Schools and that person's ability to continue on and serve and to be able to alter that original resignation date.
Yeah, I don't understand what you mean that you had the ability to alter it.
Yeah, you can edit your resignation date if there's needs that need to be met. Yes, we do entertain those, and it happens.
I'm just saying the board didn't approve it. So the other
no,
thing
we didn't have to, we didn't have time because, we didn't have time to do that. Naturally, it would have been on this agenda, but because things moved so quickly and we didn't have a board agenda between the previous one and this one, so we put it all together so that way we could keep things moving.
Okay, so you mentioned that this is a leadership role. I'm trying to understand, do you mean leadership as in a principal only, or is this a position that will be part of Dr. Gibson's leadership team?
No, a leadership position is any position that has responsibilities to lead, direct, supervise, evaluate, etc.
All right, and number 6. So the board did approve the concept of that position, but the board has never seen a job description. So there's none listed. Can you supply a job description for number 6, recruitment marketing facilitator.
Yes, I can. It was along with the job posting, but I can forward one to you separately.
Yeah, well, for the board to approve it, we haven't approved this position. We approved the concept. So without the board seeing the job description, you've already posted it on social media, hiring this person, but the board has never seen this position. So unless the board takes it upon themselves to go research, look at the position openings and track down the position, the description, the board doesn't know. So you're asking us to agree to hire or approve this consent agenda when the board's not familiar exactly what this position entails. And you're going to introduce Dirk Webb. So that was my other question, but I guess I'll just.
Yes,
wait.
we're going to introduce Mr. Webb and Miss Alexander tonight.
Yeah, I have a
Jason?
question about number 2 and number 13. It seems like every time we create a job with the county office, we're making it a 261-day job. We have only 2 principals within our system that are 261 days. Our building level people are working extremely hard, and I question whether we need those 2 jobs, 2 and 13. And 13 is being changed from a 240-day job to a 261, and I have issues with that. I don't
That's
see any.
always been a 261. I'm sorry, but that one's always been a 261.
Which one?
The system administrator.
It doesn't say that on the paper I have in front of me. It says 240 days to 261. She's going.
Those are 2 different jobs. One is a technician and one is a system administrator.
Okay, well, I have issues with number 2 being a 261-day job, with our building level people out there being less than that. It's a slap in the face to them. They're working their tails off at the building level, and we continue to make jobs 261 at the county office.
Let me make sure I understand. For number 13, we're not changing his current job description. We had an employee resign.
We had an employee, a 261 employee who resigned. It's been a 261 because that position is the servers and the system network and everything. And so there's a lot of work that is done to troubleshoot and fix throughout the school year. And then also in the summertime, that infrastructure and framework needs to be continued to work on, updated, changes, installations, moving. You move a classroom, you move a lab, you move systems, all that stuff has to be tweaked behind the scenes. So that is a year-round ongoing need, and that's been in existence for a while now. I can't tell you the creation, but it's been, I don't know of a system administrator position that's not 261, and it's been since, it's been that way before I've even been here.
So we're not.
And the coordinator position is not, that position was implemented several months ago, and we have been unable to fill it. So the reason why you're seeing it this evening is that we were, finally able to identify a successful candidate for it.
So let me just make sure that I'm extremely clear here. Number 13, we're not changing the job description. We're not changing the days. He's resigning from his current position and taking a position that somebody else resigned from. So he's moving.
Yes.
And
yeah, he's moving, and that's creating a vacancy. So then that position will be posted to replace his vacancy. Yes.
Okay. And then we'll post his 240-day technician.
Correct.
All right. And on number 7, it says to be announced his effective date. Do we have Mr. Webb's start date?
Not yet. That name was identified and the search was completed last week. And so we need to discuss that with his current employer to have a transition plan put in place.
Any other questions? All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the change to number 7, appointing Mr. Dirk Webb?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second? Is there a second to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cable.
I didn't realize that was off.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to move to remove positions 2 and 6. The board doesn't have a job description for number 6. And I agree with Mr. Osborne about number 2.
Well, we do have access to the job descriptions. I mean, the job descriptions are never a part of the packet, but whenever we create a job, we do have access to those job descriptions.
Yeah, but we don't right now, and I haven't seen it. And so I just feel like there should be some kind of consistency, basic following of guidelines. If the board's going to approve a position, they ought to know exactly what they're approving.
Well,
There is a motion on the table at this time.
all right. Well, let's go ahead and vote on the current motion that we have. The motion is to improve the consent agenda with the change to number 7 to appoint Mr. Dirk Webb. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden.
Aye.
Mr. Cable. And I'll vote for it. Opposed?
No.
Dr. Joy, is that in?
Opposed.
Okay. Motion passes 3-2. All right, moving on to unfinished.
Ms.
Oh.
Skinner, sorry to interrupt, but we do have Mr. Webb and Ms. Alexander here this evening. Can we pull them over so that way I can introduce them to the board and you can meet them and see their faces?
Yes, ma'am. They're actually in the panelist view right now.
Are they? Okay, I can't see. I'm sorry.
And we're
All
interrupting
right.
the Reds football game here, so we'll try to be brief.
All right, no worries. All right, so the first introduction that I wanted to make to you this evening is Mr. Webb for the Director of Responsive Education. Mr. Webb comes to us with a bachelor's in PE and health from Shepherd University and a master's in special education from Phoenix University. And he completed his educational leadership program through Concord. He is currently the principal of Eagle School. He served as an assistant principal from Rosemont and was a special education teacher for almost 10 years. He also was a special education department head teacher. So Mr. Webb comes with us with many years of educational experience and leadership, and we're very happy to have him join the Jefferson County Schools team and family. Thank you, Dirk, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Ms. Loring, and thank you, board members. I'm certainly excited for the opportunity and am looking forward to getting started.
And
I think he's a pretty good baseball player too, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah, I did leave that out, but yes, he does have a good, credible, and successful baseball background. Yes, thank you. And then the next individual we have to introduce to you this evening is Kristen Alexander. Kristen is joining Jefferson County Schools with more than 13 years of experience in the nonprofit communications within the education industry. Since 2008, she has served as an executive assistant and communications manager for Shepherd University Foundation, working to strengthen and support Shepherd University through the administration of private gifts. Her areas of strength include content development, social media management, editorial design, and donor relations. She is a product of public education as well as a lifelong proponent of it. Please welcome Kristen to Jefferson County Schools and our family. Oh, sorry, Kristen, you're still muted.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. And thank you to the board. I'm really excited to get started and looking forward to the challenge.
Thank you and welcome.
Very much, and welcome, Ms. Alexander and Mr. Webb. We're delighted to have you. You've got a lot of work cut out for you, so good luck. All right. Next up, we have unfinished business. We have review of comments and action on the 22-23 draft school calendar. Ms. Lori, I don't believe that's you. I'm not sure who's going to present that this evening. Oh, Ms. Pearl. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm having just a little. Okay, here I am. Sorry about that. Yes, I wanted this evening to share the public comments that were received regarding the 2022-2023 draft calendar. So I will be reading those. We received 3 public comments during the time that it was posted. The first comment says, please consider providing extra time for the holiday winter break in December. My suggestion would be to provide students, staff, and families 2 weeks off for a winter break. The current school year was extremely challenging in terms of the end of the first semester. Students were completely checked out once we hit Monday, December 20th. Many were emotionally and mentally done. In addition, many students and staff were absent since they were traveling for the holiday season. It would be in the best interest of mental health to provide this extended time for a break. My suggestion would be to make Monday, December 19th a staff work day with faculty senate. Have Tuesday, December 20th start the winter break for all. The days lost could be added the week of Memorial Day in May. This would still provide for an early end to the school year and a full summer for students. With virtual days as an option for snow days now, this would still ensure a set end date for the school year, which can allow for everyone to plan adequately. Thank you for your consideration. Our second comment we received stated, we should have 2 weeks off for Christmas. Christmas time is a time to spend with family and friends, and we can't do that if we're in school until 2 days before Christmas. Plus, Christmas time is stressful for teachers and students, so we should have more time to relax. The third comment that was received said, I'm an employee and do not agree with the return date of August 15th. The way the calendar reads is we have 1 prep day and 4 staff development days. That is too many at the beginning. Additionally, there are other staff development days throughout the year. It is an overload, particularly in the beginning. We need to return to the way it was before with 1 prep day and 2 staff development. The start of the school year is extremely busy with classroom prep. Furniture has to be moved, supplies put away, names put on materials, and lessons plans completed. The focus needs to be on this and not 4 staff development days. For the vast majority, the staff development is a waste because it is impossible to focus on that when so much needs to be done in the classroom prior to the arrival of students. I understand that it is possible that employees may get paid to prep classrooms prior to this week, but keep in mind that if the days and times are dictated to us, it may conflict with vacation and not be an option. In conclusion, I prefer the start date for employees to be August 17th with 1 prep day and 2 staff development days. So those were the 3 public comments that we received. And the draft calendar that was posted was, we just wanted to note, we had noted before the holiday, was changed from the original one based on Berkeley County Schools feedback regarding spring break. And so we did realign our spring break to now be with Berkeley counties after we received notice that they changed their spring break from their original time that they had told us. And so I think I'm going to mess this up maybe, but this evening the calendar committee would be asked that the calendar be voted on for approval.
Is there a motion to approve the draft school calendar?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
What happened? I don't hear that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cable, I couldn't hear if it was a question.
Is there a second to approve the draft calendar?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Okay, any questions?
I do have a question. Do we want to, I guess when I looked at this ahead of time, I didn't realize that we had essentially just one week for Christmas break. That's really what it is. It's 1 week. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with making that change as far as if we don't feel like our parents and staff are going to have enough time. I know we do get the week at Thanksgiving at this point. I also know they were trying to make sure we get enough days in to have 2 semesters essentially, one before the holiday and then one after the holiday. But I guess, you know, if anybody else had any comments on it, that I could go either way with that. And the teacher prep days, I know there was a lot of discussion, Devin, is that correct? I do remember we had the calendar committee meetings open to the public that we did have some discussion on those 2 days or 3 days or 4 days or 5, you know, however many they were going to do, and that they were going to allow some of it to be virtually allowed. Is that correct? So that you might have an extra prep day if you wanted to do your stuff virtually. Can you explain that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your question. So there was a lot of conversation within the calendar committee about the stress that our teachers feel at the beginning of the year with only that one designated prep day. And so we did have the feedback that they would like their prep day that very beginning of the week. And then also we added the additional days to make it that full week of calendar to allow more flexibility and to allow time for the staff to complete some of the trainings and the policies and things during that time. So it does allow that flexibility with the extra time, and principals can allow for, I keep saying time, but that's really what our teachers are wanting, allowing more prep and flexibility during that week. And so the idea from the calendar committee was that the board office, like the central office, would not dictate all of that professional development and curriculum development at the beginning, and that it can be school-based, which would allow flexibility within the schools for our teachers to have more staff time with within their cohorts and their teams for planning and things like that. Does that clarify the question, Ms. Ogden? I think I was getting jumbled up.
Yeah, no, I do think that makes sense, because we did discuss as well that at the lack of what we all felt, I believe, was West Virginia guidelines, that we get one teacher prep day, which is absurd, but that was the way to be able to try to give them more flexibility. So hopefully we can get them more time in their classrooms.
Yes, there is the West Virginia guidelines, but allowing to add that additional curriculum development day would allow that more flexibility to help with prep time for that. And also, if the board is interested in looking at Christmas for 2 weeks, based on the public comments and the feedback, we can take that information back to committee and rearrange it. Myself and Miss Whittington, the other calendar committee, one of the other calendar committees, did brainstorm some options that we could share this evening with the board, or present it back in the visual. We don't have the visual of it, but I can review what it would look like if we wanted Christmas break to be 2 days and how that rearranges the schedule for the year. I have 2 different options that I could share.
Can you give me what is Berkeley County's schedule? Because obviously that's going to affect our Rumsey students and everything else as well. So have they had any ideas about the Christmas break, unlike the spring break?
Berkeley County has not shared their calendar yet. We have spoken with their superintendent, had emailed Dr. Gibson Learn and said that they don't plan to publish their calendar until April, I believe, like March or April, but that they did share their their spring break with us to align, but they have not shared their Christmas break with us.
It's currently 10 days, correct? Total.
Sorry, let me count on my little sheet. With weekends, I believe it is. So it begins on February 22nd, would be that Faculty Senate Day. And then they're off the 23rd, which is the Friday, is their first official day. And then they have that full week of the holiday break. So that Monday through Friday, and then they have that Saturday, Sunday. And then we would return in person on the 3rd, because January 2nd is the holiday for that year, since New Year's Day falls on the Sunday.
So then it's 11 days already then.
Yeah, so I'm based on, I don't want to assume, and I feel like now I'm going down a rabbit hole, but that the public comment was wanting 2 full weeks, like the 2 5 days and not counting the weekends. But yes, Dr. Joy, it is that time with the weekends involved and included.
I think it's important that our calendar parallels Berkeley County's, because our kids lose instruction if it doesn't. So we don't know what their calendar is, but I feel it's important that it's parallel to theirs.
Yes, Mr. Osborne, we do hope for that as well with the Rumsey calendar specifically.
So should we wait to find out?
We couldn't hear you, Kathy.
I hate to wait until April to put a calendar out though, because I know families like to plan with the first day of school and, those kind of things. So what we could always do is, vote on this calendar, and then we could always adjust it or amend it if we need to, once Berkeley comes out with theirs in April.
I feel like adding days at Christmas would be the better option, instead of choosing to and then having to take days away because we've missed so much instruction time for our Rumsey kids and other things that we have going on. So I would tend to agree.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so we have a motion right now to accept the 2022-2023 draft school calendar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Pearl.
Thank you, board members. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Kathy, I do think it is worth mentioning that we did work really hard to meet with Berkeley County and have a 5 to 7 year plan so that we would always be consistent. And it was not our choice to move away from that plan and go back to just picking something in April for the following year. So I think we've done the best we can trying to make sure that we're consistent, but it would be nice if we could have some consistency again at some point with our neighboring friends to bring about 5 year plan again that makes better for the entire community, including Berkeley and Morgan. But
it was
anyway.
With Morgan, if you remember correctly. So it was the 3 counties working together to, try to have a very similar calendar, but
yeah.
I can't tell who's talking.
Kathy, it's not very.
Oh, is that her?
It didn't work out to our benefit, and we had to change spring break one year, and I don't think it's fair to wait until April. So I think we should, take what we have, and if we need to adjust it, then we can always adjust it. So thank you, Ms. Pearl. We appreciate your time and all of the work of the calendar committee. I know it's not an easy task with, this day has to be here and so many days away from that day and all of the different state regulations there and the 2 hearings that you participated in and Ms. Whittington, and we just appreciate your time and effort. So thank you. All right, next up, we have an update on referral bonus for employees. Ms. Loring, are you taking that one?
I am. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so that way you can have a visual. Okay, do you see the employee referral program up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what we wanted to do this evening is to go over the employee referral program that the board approved for the school system to develop, to give you an overview of that program and to show you what you approved, essentially. So what we have here is basically a summary of the program. Where we highlight that our greatest recruiters are the employees that currently work for Jefferson County Schools. And when that is done, then the referring employee will receive a $500 additional pay. The eligibility basically states that if you're a current employee for Jefferson County Schools, then you are eligible to receive this additional $500. The process is that the employee will complete a form that will be listed in the Talent Ed program. And our employees are currently familiar with that process, that when they need to create a form and submit one through the Human Resources and Payroll Department, this will follow that same process, and they will put the requested information containing the employee, the applicant or the candidate's name and the position that they've been referred to. That individual would apply. Our employee would have influence on that individual's decision to apply, and then that person was subsequently hired by the school district. The referred candidates still need to apply online through our job site and meet the qualifications of the position. The candidate who's being referred, there is already a section on the application that we can take advantage of, where they can put, how did you hear about employment opportunities with Jefferson County Schools? And they can then put employee referral and then add that individual's name on the application. Once everything goes through the process and we see that we have verification and documentation that our current employee referred somebody, and on the application, it was documented that that in fact did exist, the candidate received their board letter and contract from Jefferson County Schools, passed our hiring process and went through that. Once they've completed 90 days, we discussed this when we went through the recruitment and retention plan, and we honored your input that once they've completed the 90 days or the first semester of consecutive work, then that is when the employee would receive that additional pay. And if anybody has any questions about the program or the process, then they can always reach out to the Human Resources Department for more information and guidance.
We can't ask you anything now.
Sure.
I was just wondering, are all employees, can all employees participate, or are there some employees that are exempt from this?
Actually, that is a very good question, and I did glaze over it and didn't mention it, but no, not everybody can, because if you are the one who's going to be supervising that position, or if you have any active participation in the hiring process from that, then you would be exempt from it. And that's, let me see what number that is. I can't remember which one we have that on there. Yes, right here. So the last point, or the second to the last one, is employees with hiring authority or involved with the hiring process over the newly hired employee are ineligible to receive the referral pay.
So you're not,
No,
you're
I
exempt.
would not get it, no.
Yeah.
And I don't want.
I noticed a lot of employees from your former employer are being hired, so we're.
No, I don't get it. And I didn't design it for me to get it. I don't want it. I want our staff that are out there working with our kids on a daily basis to be able to benefit from it.
Thank you.
Hopefully, we'll spend a lot of $500 chunks to get some highly qualified people.
Correct. Yes. As I mentioned, our employees on the ground and in the trenches are our greatest recruiters. And so when they do that, would love to honor them with attracting and bringing in more talent to the school system.
Thank you. Next up, we have new business, action on approval of ELA instructional materials K-12 to be placed on review until January 24th, 2022. Welcome back, Mr. Banks. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Thank you. I am going to bring up the presentation here in just a second. Okay. All right. So for the next 15 or 20 minutes, we'll be going to giving you some additional information about the selected materials for ELA as chosen by the English Language Arts Adoption Committee. At the end, we will have a recommendation to the board to approve the selected materials and to put forth those same materials for public review beginning January 11th through January 24th. January 24th being the date of our next board meeting. Joining me tonight are members of that English Language Arts Adoption Committee, including our coordinators from the central office, academic coaches, and teachers. I'll be introducing many of these folks as we work through our presentation this evening. Before we get started, I do want to introduce the coordinators who have been spearheading this whole process. A very time-consuming, very difficult process to work through. And I want to introduce those folks and just to recognize the work that they have done. First, we have Mary Lind, who is our pre-K through 2 coordinator. Tara Mahoney is our 3-5 coordinator. Joel Silver is our 6-8 coordinator, and Michelle Cantley is our coordinator for grades 9 through 12. So I'm going to take the first few slides and kind of walk you through a little bit of the process. And then we're going to get to hear from our teachers who've been part of that committee. And before they speak, I will introduce them so you'll know who's speaking to you. So there's your title page on the presentation. And I want to talk a little bit about the process that we followed for this. I mentioned this a little bit last time we met. So in October of 2020, the ELA Adoption Committee positions were posted, and then Jefferson County put the process on hold in January. So we are back at it again this year, and we are working through the adoption again. So in February of 2021, we had the Wvde Materials Caravan Tour. October 2021, again, if you go back to a year before that, we had the committee positions posted. So we reposted those positions in October of 2021 because we had postponed the adoption. And the purpose of that was to give other people an opportunity to be part of that committee who may not have either been here or weren't on the committee last year. So that was in October, November, a lot of work, a lot of time spent listening to vendors and combing through the samples at the schools. November, December. The committees and the schools, they met and discussed the options and reviewed materials. And then our goal, thanks to the committee, was met December of 2021. A final decision was made, and then tonight we're before you to request your approval. A couple other things. The committee called the IRRC, as per Jefferson County policy, is made up of gen ed rep, a special ed representative, the coordinator, who I just introduced, the 4 coordinators from the central office, cultural diversity coordinator, which is Ms. Tanya Dallas Lewis, and then our technology director, which is Jen Rowan. So those are the folks that are part of that IRRC. The committee and their roles, they should utilize the West Virginia list of registered vendors, and any materials that are outside that list will need to be carefully vetted according to the Wvde policy. Work with the vendors to gather instructional samples, and we may elect to utilize the state instructional resource review to aid in the recommendation. And then, of course, it's our job upon board approval to ensure the timely delivery of those materials. We definitely want to get these materials in our teachers' hands so they have time to prepare. The must-haves as we went through this process: number 1, align to the standards that we teach, the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards. We also must provide hard copy textbooks, digital access, and then offline capability. So if we are remote or virtual learning, we still need to make sure that those students who are struggling to be online have the ability to use the same curriculum and resources. It also must integrate with the county learning management system, in our case, which is Canvas. And that's a big part that, big reason that Dr. Rowan was part of the group. And then also finally, it must possess cultural representation and the social emotional components. So those were the must-haves. The recommendations that you're going to be hearing about in just a few minutes: grade 5 recommendation is Amplify. CKLA grade 6-8 is also Amplify, which is very good. There's a seamless transition there between materials from K5 to 6-8. And then our 9-12 recommendation is HMH, which stands for, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. For those of you who know about textbook companies, they often merge together. So that's why you're seeing all the letters there. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and I do want to add that at the end we will open it up for any questions you might have. I'm going to introduce a couple elementary teachers who've been working really hard to help us find the recommended materials. First, Elizabeth Zimmerman, she's a kindergarten teacher at South Jefferson, and then Jean Urich, she's a 5th grade teacher at North Jefferson. So they're going to start with slide 7. So I'll turn it over to you ladies.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Beth Zimmerman. I'm a current kindergarten teacher at South Jefferson Elementary, and I'm currently piloting the CKLA Amplify program under the kindergarten curriculum. It's definitely a good adoption to consider because it's really based on the science of reading. Next slide, please. CKLA Amplify is made up of 2 strands. It's the knowledge strand and the skills strand. Next slide, please. The skills strand is really honed in on in the K2 programs. It really focuses on phonemic awareness and our phonics and fluency. The knowledge strand is honed in more on grades 3 through 5, which focuses a lot on the vocabulary comprehension and writing portions. However, I do want to state that the knowledge and the skills is continued from K all the way up to 5. Both or all grade levels have both strands in their program. Next slide, please. I'm going to speak real quickly on the skills strand since I do teach kindergarten, and I just wanted to say that it has a very systematic approach to phonics, starting with the basics of the phonemic awareness and leading into the systematic phonics, and all the letters and sounds really build on each other, which is so beneficial for those children who have some learning struggles. It then moves into the handwriting and how to appropriately and correctly spell or make the letters. And then we move into grammar, language conventions, And after the auditory part of all of that, we actually start doing pen to paper, pencil to paper, and the spelling and writing portion towards the end of kindergarten and continues into the 1st and 2nd grade areas. Next slide, please. These are just examples of some of the materials. On the left is the actual teaching manual, the workbooks, and then we move into the actual student readers, which is all accessible online and can be implemented right into our Canvas programming for online learning. Thank you. I'm going to send it over to Jean now, I think. Jean, are you here? If not, I can speak on this. This is mainly the 3-5. I don't know. I thought I saw her in here. I'll go on and just keep speaking so we can not waste time. This is the knowledge strand. It does say skill strand at the top, but that's an error. It's supposed to say knowledge strand. Excuse me. And it is focused more in the 3, 4, 5 grade levels. They get into complex text, close readings, collaborative conversations, some in-depth writing, response to literature, vocabulary, morphology, word structure, grammar usage, and mechanics as they get into those upper grade levels. But the foundation is set in the K2 programs for the knowledge section. Next slide, please. This slide basically just shows that it's all hooked to technology. Anything we teach pen and paper or through the books is also displayed on any kind of technology programming. Next slide, please. It's definitely cross-curricular. The science and social studies curriculum is definitely hit throughout the knowledge portion of the program. Even starting in kindergarten, we've already learned about plants and animals, the 5 senses, and it continues all the way up to 5th grade, continuing with every single curriculum based on our science and social studies standards that's covered through the program. Next slide, please. And then we just wanted to talk real quickly about the online capabilities with us possibly being virtual. Everything's accessible online for every student in the county. Lesson plans are available online for teachers. And one of my favorite things is the parent component of the program, the letters and the online resources that can be sent to parents to help continue whatever learning we are doing in the classroom in their home. Next slide, please. And I think that's the end of elementary.
I think so. Thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you,
Appreciate all
guys.
your work.
You're welcome.
Okay, so next up we have middle school, and with us tonight, middle school teachers Louise McDonald, who's an 8th grade teacher at Wildwood Middle, and Emily Gregson is an 8th grade teacher at Charlestown Middle School. So I'll turn it over to you ladies. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us. Louise was going to speak first. So Louise, are you out there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can't see myself. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm happy to talk. Can you hear me, Emily?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so if you can give us the next slide, please. We're talking about a similar system moving into middle school. And one of the benefits that we really appreciated about this program as we were reviewing a broad range of programs were the books that are available online for students, no matter where they are. So they're downloadable, but also that this particular feature jumps over some of the problems that we have with classroom libraries in every single class, in every single circumstance. So we appreciated that these texts were both modern and also canonically English texts, that they were written by a very diverse group of authors, and that they were available to all teachers at a variety of different levels to meet the needs of all learners. Next slide, please. Okay, the second piece of this that we wanted to talk about was the writing component of the middle school curriculum. Basically, this program is centering reading and writing in a whole lot of different genres, so that they were writing, students are writing formative pieces, very low stakes, experimental kinds of writing, where they can try to find their voices and try out different ways of writing, but also in longer and more summative types of writing. And it was consistently and ongoingly a part of daily life in the classroom. Next slide, please. This particular slide gives you a sense of the daily lesson plan. But what we'd like to underline about this particular slide is the word engagement. And all of us that were involved in evaluating the different packages that were available to us came down to the engaging, diverse, interesting ways of learning English that this program emphasizes. This program has the students writing graphic novels. It has them analyzing visual texts in addition to written texts. It has quests and games that they can play to read closely and carefully. And so it's very much about not always doing the same thing every single day with a bunch of middle school students, which, if you know middle school students, they really thrive on variety. And we found that this program really gave us that variety to feed the curiosity of a middle school student. Emily, would you like to continue?
I will. Thank you so much. So within our Amplify, they have the traditional textbook hard copy that people can use with a student writing journal, but they also have the online component, which is very intuitive and easy to navigate for both teachers and students and parents. And we really liked that aspect, since so much of what we do, we like to integrate with Canvas now, especially in posting assignments online. The online version of the program grades things for students and gives them immediate feedback. So some of their short answer writing prompts, students can hit submit and they get some immediate feedback from the program, so that they can go back and immediately revise their writing. And we really liked that aspect of it. So often it's hard for a teacher to get around in a classroom and provide that immediate feedback for students while we go in and we read the writing and we do provide feedback. It doesn't always come back so soon. So that opportunity for them to revise in the moment is really important. The curriculum provides for two different pathways, which also gives teachers flexibility. There's a 180-day pathway, which would cover a whole school year. But then there's a 100-day pathway that still covers all of the standards, but gives teachers some flexibility to build in more novel studies and do some of those other units maybe that they're very passionate about that are really good for our students. We really like the variety and creativity of all of the activities, and the fact that we can use the curriculum and just plug it into Canvas as far as like assigning assignments. Though the one drawback that we didn't like is that the graded aspect cannot right now transfer directly into Canvas, but Amplify has promised us that they're developing that. And it will be coming within the next year or so for us. The students can also access this on their phones, and we know they always have their phones on them. So even if their school assigned laptop is dead, or they left it at home or something, if we're doing the platform at school, they can still access all of the assignments and work on their phone. Next slide, please. Differentiation is embedded right into the Amplify program, and it's really easy for teachers to differentiate within the moment. So as we are monitoring students as they are working, if we notice that one student needs more scaffolding and we just, for whatever reason, didn't realize that ahead of time, we can go right into the program and click a button and it will immediately provide some additional scaffolding for students. The nice thing is all students are completing the same tasks that align to the same standards. They are just getting some additional scaffolding and supports to help them be successful at meeting the standards. So some examples of that would be there are additional guiding questions, or students are provided with sentence frames for their writing. They might have simplified language or a graphic organizer that's provided to them if they need more support. And if students are ready for a challenge, some additional challenge or an extension, we can go in and provide that for students too, so that it can meet every student where they are and continue to help them progress. Next slide, please. And then finally, Amplify receives really high marks in Ed Report. So if you take a look at that slide where the blue boxes are, is where Amplify scored. So they are on the higher end of everything for text quality and complexity, for usability, and for building knowledge and vocabulary with text. They meet expectations in every area on Ed Reports all the way through for those college and career readiness standards. So,
okay,
I
thank
think
you.
That's our break.
Louise and Emily, thanks for being here tonight. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
So next up, we have 3 high school teachers with us. Michelle Hine, who is an ELA teacher at Jefferson High. Tracy Huffman, she's an ELA teacher at Washington High. And then one of our academic coaching facilitators, Jamie Ritzenthaler, she's here with us, and she works at Washington High as well. So I'll turn it over to those 3 ladies.
Okay, if you could go to the upgrade slide, please, the next one. Thank you. So HMH is a program that we have used for the last 6 years. That was one of the points that kind of pushed us over in a good debate about which one we should choose. Teachers are familiar with this program. We're merely adding new features, new content, tools, and supports without that learning curve that we've had to apply in so many other situations this year. Next slide, please. Into Literature aligns with the West Virginia standards. The resources are tagged. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The resources are tagged to standards, and teachers can search by standards. In addition, assessments are connected to standards, allowing teachers to gauge students' progress and find appropriate differentiated resources. Next slide, please. This is Tracy.
Yes, ma'am. Students are engaged throughout the program by honoring and encouraging their voice. Ongoing questions spark student learning in print or online. After selection, students have choices of activities to show their learning. Next slide, please.
Guys, is the next slide up? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Mrs. Ritz, I don't have the notes for that one.
That's okay. I can go ahead and take this. HMH gives us flexibility to differentiate the content by providing summaries and adapted text and leveled text. It allows us to differentiate the process using embedded support in the TE for EL students, striving learners, and advanced students. It allows us to differentiate the learning environment using alternative small group recommendations, and it allows us to differentiate the activities with scaffolded support like peer coach videos and anchor charts. Next slide, please.
A blend of classic and contemporary literature is at the heart of the program, including a digital library of full-text novels and an expansive list of print novels. The online text library provides additional level text connected to the unit topics, which is a benefit to every teacher. Next slide, please. With Writable and Into Literature, digital writing practice and feedback is fully integrated. We can access core Into Literature content, give feedback sooner, easily connect reading and writing, benchmark and track writing growth, plus a plagiarism checker and grammar support is built right in the program. Writable is a game changer for writing instruction. Next slide, please.
Students and teachers can find all their resources on a single site within a single login. They can find their online books and resources. Teachers can assign resources that students can find and complete. Teachers can find resources by standard or using their teacher's edition, which gives easy to follow question and answer format to find resources for specific situations. Next slide, please.
Into Literature achieved the highest rankings for each category in Ed Reports. Next slide, please. HMH offers a treasure trove of bite-sized professional learning resources for just-in-time learning to meet the teacher's needs as they arise, with easy-to-find topic-specific tutorials and resources to help teachers personalize their learning experience within the platform. Next slide, please.
The Family Room is a dedicated space for family support that provides on-demand resources for parents and students. Next slide.
Okay. Thank you, ladies. That concludes the high school part of our presentation. So board members, you have heard from our elementary, our middle, and our high school teachers. And I would like to remind everybody that this process, which I firmly believe in very strongly, is teacher driven. The teachers make these decisions and they present them to us. It's our job to just guide them through the process. So at this point, we would be glad to entertain any questions. And Jason, if you could make sure that the four coordinators are unmuted too, so that they can jump in and answer any potential questions.
I have a couple questions.
Before we move into questions, let's just go ahead and put a motion on the floor to approve the ELA materials to be placed on review until January 24th. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Okay, Dr. Dre, you had a question?
Yeah, well, number one, where will they be so that the public and the board can evaluate them? I guess there'll be hard copies and digital, maybe at the board office somewhere. That's my first question. My second question is, I haven't heard anything about Spanish versions. Are there Spanish versions, and will the school system be purchasing them?
Did any of the coordinators jump in on that? First question was, Dr. Joy wanted to know where we will be displaying these so that people can see them and review the materials.
So every school will have a place that they house them. So if the public wants to see them, if they talk to the secretary out front, they can direct them. So it may be a little different for each school, but that front secretary will be able to guide the people in the right direction if they want to view them. As far as the board office, we'll have a table right outside the coordinator's offices, just like we did for the health adoption, that if you would like, or again, the public can come there as well to view those. They will be right outside our offices next to the main reception desk.
And Dr. Joy, would you mind repeating your second question, please?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's Spanish versions of the materials, and will the school system be purchasing them?
So I can speak on the Amplify, which is the K-8. They all, Amplify does have built-in Spanish edition or Spanish help, and that just comes standard with the Amplify program. So there is Spanish support for all our students with Amplify. Yes, ma'am.
So I didn't ask if there was Spanish support. I asked if there was a Spanish version of the textbook and the materials.
Yeah, so there are Spanish supports. Now, maybe not every single novel or every single book, but for the majority that are overall class work, there is Spanish text for them. Yes, ma'am.
That's just for the lower level, you said?
No, so like with the 700 novels that come with the e-library, not every one of those novels would have Spanish support, but the novels being taught a whole group in the classrooms, they would have Spanish support.
So all three levels, I'm at, because I thought you said just the Amplify.
So I can speak K-8 just because that's what I'm used to. But Michelle, I'll let you talk about high school.
Yes, the high school has a translate version for all of the online textbook. So any resources that are available via the regular textbook has the translate feature built in. Yes.
So you don't have a Spanish copy for a child that speaks Spanish. They don't have a hard copy they can take home. And will students be taking these books home? Are they meant to be taken home and used, or how would they be used?
So we have classroom sets of hard copy books in the classrooms, and they could be taken home as needed, but every student will have access to the textbooks and novels via their Chromebook through the Canvas platform.
But not, so they're not hard copies to take home. It's just on a tablet. They can use that, right? Is that what you're saying?
You have that in addition to, yes, you also have the hard copies in the classrooms. And if a student needs to take home the textbook, they can. But if a student doesn't need to take the textbook back and forth, our backpacks are heavy and such, they could just access the e-version on their Chromebook through Canvas.
You're a high school person that's speaking?
Yes.
So, and that's the same for all the other levels then too, correct?
Correct.
But no Spanish copies, it sounds like, but there is an interpreter.
A translator, yes.
Translator. The final question is, Mr. Banks, you mentioned that social emotional component, and what is that? How is that addressed in these materials? I was just curious because you mentioned it.
Yeah, that was one of the have-tos. Any of the coordinators who've been involved in this process, I know that a lot of the different stories that are contained within the materials do have social emotional components to them. Is there anybody who could elaborate on that a little bit?
Can elaborate on that, Mr. Banks.
Sure.
and Dr. Joy. So one of the things that we looked for in the curriculum was we wanted to make sure that the curriculum was developmentally appropriate for our students, meaning that due to their age, et cetera, that what we are asking them to do is hands-on, is lots of engagement for the students and lots of opportunities for them to have discussions with their peers. And that's all part of the social emotional healing that we're all taking part of the past few years.
Thank you. That makes sense. I appreciate it.
Certainly.
All right, any other questions, comments? So we have a motion on the floor to approve the ELA instructional materials be placed on review until January 24th, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you. And thank you to all of the committee members and the coordinators and everybody else that spent the time going through the different materials and coming up with the best solution for our county. We appreciate it.
Thank you, board, for your listening tonight. It was a long presentation. Hopefully you found it valuable. We appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have providing free on-site testing for students, staff to reduce quarantine times.
Yes, Ms. Skinner, I believe that Dr. Ebersol is coming on to join us and do some screen sharing for a proposed plan. To give a very brief overview, I want to be clear that this plan is another tool in our tool belt for reducing the amount of time that students and staff are out of the school environment based on quarantine. It is a program that would be completely voluntary. There would be no requirement for anyone, staff or students, to utilize the services, and the services will be provided without charge to either staff or students or to the Jefferson County school system. So Joyce, I believe that you are up and that Dr. Ebersol is joining you.
Yes, Dr. Ebersol is joining me this evening. Good evening, board. We have a presentation for you this evening, and I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Ebersol. He has some key points of the program to discuss. At the end of the presentation, we'll await a possible motion and answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I'm going to introduce Dr. Ebersol, and he will introduce members of our panel that are here this evening to explain the program and answer your questions.
Again, thank you, Ms. White, and thank you, Dr. Gibson and board members, for this opportunity to share with you our test to stay strategy that would offer, again, free testing to asymptomatic students so that we might reduce quarantine while increasing in-person learning for our students. Again, we're fortunate to be joined by 4 experts. On the panel this evening, we have Amy Papavero. Ms. Papavero is our Jefferson County Schools charge nurse. She is responsible for our school nursing program from a clinical perspective. We also have Catherine Mubarak. Ms. Mubarak is our Jefferson County Schools pandemic response nurse. In addition, we have 2 representatives of Maverick Health, which would be the group that, again, in partnership with the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, would actually administer the testing program. And that is Mr. Andrew Berman and Mr. Derek Jacob. Again, we're so glad to have these 4 professionals here to be available to answer any questions you may have about this particular strategy. As you may be aware, in its recent guidance, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention described what is called test to stay. And again, under this scenario, asymptomatic students who are not fully vaccinated would be permitted to continue in-person learning if they were administered free on-site testing for COVID. Again, this would be exclusively with parental consent. Again, we've polled our nurses, and as our nurses will explain very soon, this would add no further burden to our school nursing program. The testing program, again, which would be free to parents as well as to our school district, would be administered by again, Maverick Health Services in partnership with the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources. Mr. Johnson, if you could please just scroll the one pager down a little bit. Again, keep going. Again, keeping mindful that, again, personnel of Maverick Health Services would be site-based in our schools. They would rotate on a weekly schedule to be able to administer a non-invasive antigen and PCR tests to students with parental consent. This would not be administered otherwise. Again, the testing would also be available for our staff and teachers, again, with their consent, so that they could likewise, again, be tested and continue to be in our schools. Again, just to be aware that the test would be administered twice in 7 days. Our parents would be informed of those results of the antigen test within 24 hours. Similarly, the PCR test could be available as soon as within 24 hours, although on occasion, it can take as long as 36 hours for those results to be returned. Please be advised that all testing supplies, all materials, again, would be provided at no cost to either families or to the school system by Maverick Health. Again, Maverick Health would be then responsible for the reporting requirements at the state and local level. Again, they would indeed work with our nursing team that do our contact tracing so that they would then know about the students who have indeed continued asymptomatic. Obviously, if a child or a staff member were to become symptomatic or to test positive, they would then need to quarantine. Again, all of the services would be provided free to our parents. Again, these are non-invasive procedures. Again, the important part is that we are trying to alleviate quarantine while increasing the time that our students spend in in-person learning. We're certainly available for any questions that you have of any of the panelists at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ebersol. And I do want to point out, this is a saliva test that was noted in the notes. I'm not sure that came out with Dr. Ebersol, but just to be clear, the test that would be given is saliva.
I have some, I guess, questions and statements. When Dr. Reedy was here last time, I suggested that we have online testing to alleviate the burden of missing school, parents having to take their children to get tested, to pay for these transportation and services for school employees to miss opportunities. So I'm just so relieved to hear that common sense is being used here, because I also understand that maybe Ms. Skinner wasn't aware, but I believe that TA Lowry is going remote because there is a teacher shortage at that school starting tomorrow. I thought I read that somewhere. And, you know, this is what having on-site testing, I think, would help alleviate a lot of these problems, because there would be less quarantining. And that leads me to one other comment. The fact that we are in the middle of this pandemic, the numbers are increasing. It concerns me that we are choosing to do walkthroughs through the schools when the board, you know, employees don't have time to sub, but they can go do walkthroughs. And we still haven't made it this, the teachers don't know about the lesson plans yet. So I just feel like there are so many shortages. We are missing many teachers, and what's the point of doing these walkthroughs at this time? It just seems counterproductive. And I know maybe this isn't the time to discuss that, but the more I think about it, I just think, you know, this teachers and the administrators, you know, they're having to organize and prepare and welcome these people from the board office when, you know, if we don't have enough teachers to where we have to shut down a school, then we don't have enough board office employees to go do walkthroughs. That's all. Thank you.
Dr. Joy, you are entirely correct that this is not the venue for that discussion. I will, however, note that central office employees have subbed for over 85 days this year. They are in the schools subbing constantly, consistently, supportively, and I think it is at a disservice to them to state anything otherwise. I will be more than happy to have a conversation with the board or provide a presentation to explain why being in the schools and speaking with the teachers and the students regarding their needs and how they can be supported is beneficial to us as a school system.
Ms. White and Mr. Ebersol, I have a quick question for you. So the whole purpose of this program, it's a West Virginia Department of Health program, correct? This is not a program that we made up. And it's the whole purpose of it is to reduce quarantine and to keep staff and students in school as much as humanly possible. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, it is provided by the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, as they offer that as a free service to our schools, and it is to reduce quarantine and to keep students in school, to keep students' schedules normal, including if they're playing sports and they want to continue, you know, if they have extracurriculars such as band. All of that with parent permission is the intent of this program.
You mentioned that they're going to rotate between the schools. So let's say they're at Page Jackson on Monday and Wright Denny on Tuesday and Jefferson High on Wednesday. Do those staff and students have to wait for that rotation to come back to their school, or do they have the ability to go wherever the testing is the day that they need it?
If I may, Ms. Skinner, I would invite Mr. N again. Mr. Derek Jacob is on the call from Maverick, and he could explain how the teams rotate based on the schedule.
Thank you.
Again, Mr. Johnson, could you make sure that the one that says Maverick Health could speak, please? He'll need to be unmuted. There's another one as well, please, Jason. Mr. Berman, could you speak to that while we unmute Mr. Jacob?
Sure. So as was already pointed out, this is completely free of charge and completely voluntary. And Maverick Health will show up to do the tests where required and will test any and all of the students that show up that have properly consented from their parents. Wherever it is and however many it is, we're going to be there to supply the supplies and perform the tests and do that reporting.
So theoretically, you could be at all of the schools in one day's time to get whoever needed testing done that day and then do the same thing the next day? Or I just want to make sure I understand the actual process, not that we implement this program and then, you know, somebody's still waiting for a week to get a test. That defeats the whole purpose of the testing in program.
Sure. So based on whatever the schedule is set, we will be at the designated location at whichever school or multiple schools that are chosen. And again, we'll be there with all supplies and tested students. We sort of pride ourselves in being very highly customizable and being able to fit whatever it is the need is. So if you want us to be at different schools, we can certainly do that.
And would this be during school hours or would this be after school hours, or do we have a plan for that?
Generally during school hours, it's just a little easier to facilitate that way.
Do any other board members have any questions?
I have a question. Is this also available then? I'm assuming what it's mainly available to with the staffing shortages, where if I have an exposure over the weekend and I can't get an appointment to get tested until, you know, in the evening, or I don't want to have to go sit 3 hours waiting at urgent care to get tested, I can come first thing on a Monday morning into one of the schools and be tested to be able to possibly be cleared to not need a sub that day because I was able to do that. Is that correct, Dr. Ebersol?
That is correct, Ms. Ogden, that we would have that antigen test available immediately and then followed, obviously, if necessary, with the PCR in the event of a positive as well to confirm.
So at this point, Dr. Gibson, are you asking for us to vote to initiate the process here in the program?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay. So is there a motion to provide the free on-site testing for students or staff to reduce quarantine times?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Any other questions or discussion? I guess my only other question would be, Mr. Berman or Mr. Ebersol or Ms. White, if a parent wants their child to be tested, is it possible for the parent to accompany the child, not that the school is just doing the testing without the parent there?
Yes,
That's
sure.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So all in favor of starting the program for the free on-site testing for students and staff, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much. And when do you anticipate this program starting?
Again, our partners, Maverick Health, have said they could have it in place by Monday a week with your approval. So we will move forward expeditiously tomorrow to make sure we have it in our schools as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
need students and staff in school as much as possible. So hopefully this helps with some of the quarantine issues we've been faced with lately.
Thank you.
So thank you. All right, Dr. Gibson, we're on to superintendent's comments. Do you have any comments this evening?
I would simply echo your statements that I deeply appreciate the staff who are continuing to make these sacrifices every day. And I would very much like to convey both our appreciation and hope that they are buoyed by the enormous support from the vast majority of the community.
Thank you. And do we have an executive session this evening?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Then 9:07, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.